Okay, so this video is going to be about structs. And before I start talking about structs, I kind of want to give you an example of why you would want to use a struct, right? So imagine you want to create a function that prints out the attributes of a person, right? So let's say we have a function foo, and we're going to print out, let's say, a name and an age, right? You can have a more complex data structure for a person, but we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to say a person has a name and an age, and we want to print this out. So one way of defining a function like this could be, you could say name string, right? And then age can be integer like so. And down here, we're going to do fmt.println, and we're going to print out the name, and we're going to print out the age. Now, here's the thing. With two variables, you know, it's kind of fine to just pass in two variables like so. But if you have a more complicated data structure to represent a person, you may want to use a struct, right? So instead of passing in a name and an age, you may want to pass in, let's say, a struct person, which is denoted by p, and we can just replace this with p.name and p.age. Perfect. So to actually create this person struct, we would do something like this. Now we have our person struct, and what we want to do is we want to instantiate an instance of it so we can use it in our function. And to do so, we do something like this. And to set the fields, what we can do is going to do p.name, and we're going to assign this to, let's say, Alice. And we're going to say age is equal to 30. Yeah, that's fine. And we're going to call foo, and we're going to pass in p, like so. And let's actually run this. And as you can see, we got Alice, and we got the age of 30. Perfect. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make a new struct, which is going to be an address. And this new struct is going to have two fields. It's going to have a country, and it's going to have a city. And what we're going to do with this, the main point here is that we're going to take this address and we're going to nest it inside of this person struct. And we're going to say this person is going to have an address, and the type of this address is going to be address. So as you can see now, this person has a name, an age, and an address. And now to populate this, we're going to do p.address .city, and we're going to set the city to be Toronto, and we're going to set the country to be Canada. Okay, now if we print this out, we're only going to get the name and the age, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new function. We're going to call this print city. And this print city function is also going to take a person, like so. And all this is going to do is it's going to print out the city. Okay, so let's replace this with print city. And let's actually go to our terminal. And as you can see, we get back Toronto. Okay, so now we have our lovely person struct that has a name, age, and address. And we also have our address struct, which has a country and a city. Perfect. Now, what can we do to make this even better? Let's look at the interface to how we use it, right? So we have P, and this accesses address, which accesses city and we set the name of the city to be Toronto. Now, what can we do to make this better, right? So to make this better, now in my opinion, I think what we can do is we can try to get rid of this extra typing here, right? So it'd be nice if we can do p.city, right? Instead of doing p.address.city, we can do just p.city. Let's see how we can do this. So one way we can do this, I guess in other languages, you could do something like this. You can do this, put this in here, and that would work, right? And obviously that's not what we want to do, simply because we want to keep the data in city separate from the data in person, right? So there's a feature in Golang which is actually very unique to the language itself, and that is called embeddings, right? So what you can do is you can take a type like so, and you can simply put it into a struct. So what's going to happen is we're going to embed the fields of address into person. And what this is going to allow us to do is we can simply remove address here. And if we go back to our command line, as you can see, it still works. So what we have essentially done is we can now access the fields of address directly through person. But if you want to, if you have a situation in which address and person do not have mutually exclusive field names, what you can do is you can always default back to doing .city and .country. So this will work as well. Just to prove it, as you can see, this works. So this concept is called, or this feature is called embeddings. So you can embed structs within structs. And that is a small improvement, but it is a very nice improvement indeed. So the next thing I want to do is I want to change this function into a method. Now, to change this function to a method, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it back here, and I'm going to put this here. And down here, what we're going to do is we're going to remove p and put it back here, save. And it works. So let me actually explain how this works. So what we did is we basically attached this function, print city, to the type person, right? And what this thing back here is called is it's called a receiver. And the specific type of receiver we're using here is value receiver. So what's going to happen here is we're going to get a copy of an instance of the type person that calls this function. So back here, as you can see, we're doing p.printCity, right? So the instance that we're going to receive is going to be this instance right here. So we're going to receive an instance of person, and we're simply going to print out the city, right? So this is a value receiver, right? We can also create a pointer receiver, and a pointer receiver looks something like this. So pointer receiver is slightly different in that a value receiver, when you receive your instance of this type, you're not able to modify it. Well, you can. So for example, if you want to, you can change it like so. So if you wanted to, you can modify a copy of it and return it. That's perfectly fine, right? But let me just reset this. But here, what you can do is you can actually change this like so. So if you actually run this, this is going to change the value of city, and this will actually be reflected right here, right? So when you're making your methods, if you have a method that you know that you are not changing anything inside of your type, right? You may want to use a value receiver, if you know you're going to change something in your type. So for example, if you're making like an increment function like so, you may want to use a pointer receiver like this. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to actually serialize these structs into JSON. And to do so, we're just going to do JSON is equal to... So I don't know why, but in Golang, serializing things is called marshalling. I don't know why they picked that name, but whatever. Okay, so I'm going to do this, and we're going to actually print this out. And I think I have to convert this into a string. Okay, so what we got back is we got name is Alice, age is 30, country is Canada, city is Toronto. Okay, this looks perfectly fine, right? But let's say I want to print out, instead of like name with an uppercase, I want it to have like a name with a lowercase. And the problem with structs like this is that if you uppercase something, it means that it's public, right, to other packages. While if you lowercase something, that means it's private to other packages. So what I want to do is I want to make it so that when I print out, let's say country, right? This is going to be printed with a lowercase c. So what we can do is we can add kind of like an annotation. So what these are called is tags, right? So we can create a tag like this. And honestly, like all a tag is just an optional string. So if you don't include a tag like so, I think it just defaults to like an empty string in Golang. These things don't actually do anything unless the function you're calling, it actually uses it for something. So basically what we're going to do is going to say JSON, and we're going to say, so I want the name of this field in JSON to be a lowercase country, right? Let's just copy this. Let's change this to city. Okay, so as you can see now, what we have is we basically renamed all of our fields to a lowercase version of the original name, right? So let's clear this out and let's run this again. And as you can see, we got lowercase name, we got lowercase country, and we also got an address, right? So if we didn't include this here, as you can see, it didn't really understand how to serialize this address, right? But since we actually gave it a name, it understands that it should have a name when it serializes the JSON. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. If you want to see more videos like this one, check out my channel, and I will see you later.